You know, it is incredible how you just realize, 5 minutes into your show that you didn't have your mic on. All right. Um, well, then I guess let's start off from the top. Uh, so, uh, for for the first movie that I saw this week, I wanted to talk about Uncharted. This is a video game movie that I waited to see with my daughter. And while she absolutely loved this movie, I wasn't as enthralled with it as she was. I thought it was just okay. And for a movie based on Uncharted, the video game, which I will be honest, I haven't played that much of, but I've seen played, and I've seen some of the action set pieces from the video games that stood out. I felt like this movie uh, was a pale comparison to the potential that the video game itself provided because from the way that it looks and from the little that I have played of it, Uncharted is intending to kind of gravitate towards those action set pieces that you have in those movies. And so, in order to mimic that, it kind of just again it's kind of the diminishing returns type of thing. What the film needed to do was to create new action set pieces, stuff that the Uncharted video games themselves would want to emulate. The problem here is that there is almost entirely CG. It didn't really have any of the weight and feel of an action movie. This didn't wasn't directed by an action director. This was directed by Ruben Fleischer, whose Zombieland, uh, again, kind of goes off of comedy beats. You feel the comedy beats between Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. The supporting characters aren't as strong, which really comes out. And on top of that, it just felt very cheap. It felt like they weren't really trying. And so I think that it is possible to make a great series out of Uncharted. I will say though that they need to get an action director, possibly someone who is capable of delivering both the action and comedy, which I know is kind of a difficult thing. But I think that if they nail those two and marry those with some incredible set pieces, use live action or sorry, not live action, use uh, live sets or like on location settings and stuff like that. Go as practical as possible. Uncharted has the ability to be uh, a franchise that is capable of going the distance, in my opinion, as long as Tom Holland is up for it. Uh, so Uncharted for right now, not really something that I'm too hyped out about, but that could change depending on where any type of sequel might come in. All right, so the next movie that I want to talk about is Cyrano. I got a chance to see it. I know that I mentioned that that I was hoping to see Cyrano uh, before the Oscars. That it was nominated for a few of the technical awards. I will say that uh, stylistically speaking, this is a gorgeous film. Looks incredible. Joe Wright's direction is really good when it comes to the visual aesthetics of the film. Peter Dinklage as Cyrano Dvorak is awesome. He really makes the character just you just really feel for this character and you're really on his side. Haley Bennett and Kelvin Harrison Jr. are good. I will say that the writing might be hurting both of those characters and making them so superficial. Specifically, Haley Bennett's character, who is so unlikable. One of the first songs in the movie. By the way, this is a musical. I know that they didn't make that a big deal in the trailers. I just want to make sure that you're aware of this. This is, in fact, a musical. Uh, but Haley Bennett's character, one of her first songs, is her basically complaining about how she's going to be no one's wife or no one's uh, property, while at the same time this is just after she declares that she's using a guy basically because she can't afford to go out on dates herself. She's extremely unlikable, uh, and by the time you get to the end where you're supposed to feel something, I really couldn't, just because uh, the character was so damaged and tarnished by the time we get to that finale. Uh, that said, some of the songs are really good, um, especially when it came to a sudden appearance of Glenn Hansard of Once fame, who shows up for one particular song, which was actually really good. I will say that the dance sequences do not work at all, because it just comes out of nowhere. It was trying to go for an epic feel when it honestly would have worked better as more of an intimate musical, with fewer characters, fewer set pieces. Uh, Again, nothing on Joe Wright. Joe Wright's really good at getting those, kind of giving that epic scope, but it just didn't really mesh with the story that was being said here. That said, when it comes to the story, uh, did someone forget to tell somebody that Cyrano de Bergerac is a comedy? Because this thing is dour and dark and serious and moody. This is the Batman of musicals, and I understand that it does have that French sense of humor. There's some obviously the comedy of Cyrano de Bergerac has a dark tinge to it, uh, but the filmmakers here clearly, uh, and I know this is based on an off Broadway play, um, that it's really kind of depressing, if I'm being completely honest. That said, it is good. I do recommend it, even if it is also one of those things I don't know if I'd ever want to see again. I might listen to some of the songs, but this is not a movie that I think that I'll go back to and watch again. I also want to talk about a movie that is now reached its 50th anniversary. I don't know how to feel about that. The first time that I saw The Godfather, I was a teenager, and every time that I've seen The Godfather, I think I've seen it 6 times at this particular point. I notice new things each and every time I see it, and The Godfather plus The Godfather Part 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best duologies of all time. Godfather 3, not so much, although I haven't seen Coda, the Death of Michael Corleone. Once I see that, maybe I might change my mind. But seeing The Godfather on one of the biggest screens that I can, it was in an AMC Dolby Digital theater, just made me fall in love with this movie even more. I can't say enough things. If I did an episode of my podcast, Art House Legends, where we talked about this particular movie, and I go into deep analysis on it, and I feel the exact same way about it then as I do now, especially when it comes to Marlon Brando's performance. I will say that Michael Corleone, if there's anything that I've noticed this time around that was different from the last time I've seen it, which was for that podcast, it is that Michael Corleone always had a dark side to him that I think I just didn't realize. He wasn't uh, as innocent as I kind of allowed him to be, and I think part of it is that he was arrogant. That especially when you get to when you're watching those wedding scenes, there's an arrogance there that I just didn't really pick up on. That said, Diane Keaton is just fantastic. John Cazale, uh, for his small role. He really comes through when it comes to The Godfather Part 2, but he does a really good job of laying that groundwork in this particular film. James Caan, in my opinion, uh, is the best performance here, and that's saying a lot considering that you have one of the most memorable uh, roles of oh, I can't believe I'm blanking out right now. Marlon Brando's career, one of the greatest roles in Marlon Brando's career. But James Caan just does such a great job of mixing all these different emotions. That says, seeing The Godfather in the post uh, 45th president uh, universe, I will say that I did pick up on some interesting similarities with a certain former first family. Uh, a part of me kind of laughs and giggles. It's just kind of just let's just say that certain characters and how they're represented in real life can be quite entertaining if you think about it. But Godfather 50th anniversary, if you get a chance to see it on the biggest screen possible, I know that a certain bat is about to take over those screens. So if you get a chance, hurry up and see it. It's worth it. I love this film. Give this film some love for its 50th anniversary. If not, it's perfectly fine on a TV. Just make sure that you have the sound way up and really, really kick in with that that Nino Rota score. Mwah! Magnificent. Love this film. Go see it. But I do have one other film I want to talk about before we get into our main topic, which is about theatrical experiences. This one wasn't a theatrical experience. I saw it on the couch with my significant other. No Exit. This is a Hulu film. And while this is not a great Hulu film, I gotta say, I'm always intrigued by films that are self-contained with a minimal amount of characters, kind of, in having mind games between them. I will say that the trailers are a little misleading and a little misgiving when it came to what this film is about. No Exit follows a young woman who has escaped a rehab that she was in because she is trying to get to her mother before she passes away. Her mother's in the hospital. Unfortunately, she gets snowed into a visitor center in the middle of the Sierra Nevada mountains with four other people, and then finds out that just outside this, in one of the cars outside, is a little girl that is bound up and looks like she's going to be taken away for nefarious reasons. With a premise like that, I was definitely intrigued. I will say, though, that the film does the best it can with the material, but at the same time, it doesn't elevate the material. I was hoping for kind of maybe a Reservoir Dogs or kind of a thriller with some great twists and turns. That said, they give away their biggest twist early, which usually indicates that there's going to be other greater twists moving along. And all it does is it just gets a little crazier and crazier, but it doesn't ever reach that kind of insanity that you would hope with a film like this if you're going to have your twist come out so early. On top of that, it runs into the problem of making almost everyone unlikable. And then the climax kind of comes out. I don't want to say it comes out. It doesn't come out of nowhere, but it just is so abrupt in getting there that it's a little jarring, and it feels a little overstuffed in the final act. and the ending is disappointing. There's just no other way to put it. The ending is disappointing, but that said, it is a Hulu film. If you find yourself with a couple hours and you just want something to watch while you're doing some chores, it'll worth it. No Exit on Hulu. If that's your thing, give it a shot. I just wasn't as impressed with it as I was hoping to be. Alright, so before we get into our main topic, I just want to reiterate, because I know that my mic wasn't on when I mentioned the topic, but today I want to, because I'm kind of flying solo here, I don't have any guests. I will have a guest next week, and I really can't wait for you to meet our guest. But for this week, I wanted to talk about theatrical experiences because, in my opinion, one of the great things about the movie, about going to the movies, is that sometimes when you see a movie, the environment that you're in is as important as the movie itself. In fact, I have had experiences where bad movies have been elevated into being good movies, if just for a moment, because of the circumstances that you're in, the environment that you're in, that you're with people who really enjoy what they're seeing, and their enthusiasm is infectious, and you just want to kind of join along in it. That said, though, the 5 experiences that I want to talk about today, these are really special experiences. Not all of them are great experiences, but they're extremely memorable, and in some instances, very heartfelt. And some are funny, some are really sad, but these 5 are very memorable. That said, I am open to doing more if this is something that that y'all enjoy listening to. And again, I would also love to know your experiences as well, which leads me to obviously just letting you know that again we have a chat. Throw your memorable experiences in the chat, and who knows, maybe we'll do a feedback version of Theatrical Experiences, maybe sometime in March or April, whenever an opportunity finds itself. So, at this point, I want to just make you aware that some of these experiences do have some spoilers, so just be aware of that. But these movies are pretty old, so there's that experience. Oh, by the way, if you want to know just how many movies I've gone to in my life, when I was 17 years old, I was able to travel to movie theaters that were a lot more classier, a lot more with the stadium seating and the great sound, instead of the your local Cinema 4 that was there since 1977. And so let's just say I've seen quite a few movies, and I keep my ticket stubs, my old school ticket stubs, in 2 bags. And recently I was going through them, and that's actually what encouraged me to do this particular list, because I just realized how many experiences that I had going to the movies, and a lot of experiences and a lot of stories that I had with these particular movies. The people I were with, the audiences, the twists, the turns, stuff like that. But these 5 that I'm going to talk about today, they mean a lot to me, and I just want to share that with you. So, let's start with theatrical experience number 1. And my first one I want to talk about is a little movie called Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. Now, I'm going to try my hardest not to get emotional about this, because If you've seen Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey, you know that it is a fun movie. It's a funny movie. You know, it's about two dogs and a cat trying to get home to their masters, uh, going through all kinds of hair raising adventures, and it's really well made. Uh, the animals don't talk in the sense that their mouths move along with their talking, but what they do is they have three actors kind of voicing the animals, and just the way that it's shot, that you get the idea that they're having a conversation. You have Don Amici playing the old dog. You have Michael J. Fox playing the young dog, and Sally Field playing the cat. So, needless to say, when I saw this, I want to say, uh, 12 years old, 12 or 13 years old, when this movie came out. And we got, me, my brother, and one of my, I don't want to say a best friend, but it was a friend that lived right next to us. We went to go see this movie together. It was a sneak preview before it opened wide, right? And it was a Saturday afternoon. We went to the movies right next to our house, which was about like 4 blocks away, a very small theater. And I was having a good time all the way up until the ending. And here's where the spoiler comes in. All right, so again, if you haven't seen Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, it's on Disney Plus. I can't recommend it enough. Uh, but I will say that the ending is a tearjerker, so just be prepared. But if you're willing to go with me, I'll spoil it right now. So at the end of the adventure, they're almost home. They're all, they're back in the city, or the town that the family's living in. And at this particular point, one accident leaves the older dog in a ditch, hurt, seriously hurt, and the other dog and the cat can't get him up. And the older dog, basically is saying his goodbye, that he can't make it, and that he's gonna have to just, he's just gonna stay there. All right, at this particular point, 11-year-old me, or 12, actually not 11, sorry, 12 or 13-year-old me is already in, kind of just feeling the tears starting to come, right? And, but see, any other movie, that would be the teary part, right? But you can't have that, not in this movie. This movie decides it really wants to ramp up. It really wants to hit you where it hurts, right? So clearly, the young dog, the cat, they go, they find the man, they find the family, they find the two child owners, but of course, the older dog has his owner. And his owner, after seeing the dog and the cat, is expecting his dog to come. And at this point, he's waiting. At this point, I'm just like tearing up, right? You can tell right now that I'm about to get emotional. All right, so, and of course, the tears are starting, right? And then realization of the boy, happens, and all is like, the acceptance that his dog is not coming back. And then at that moment, the dog comes up, and the music rises up, and at this point, I lost it. I bawled my eyes out in front of my younger brother and a close friend. I lost it. I didn't just silently teared up and was sniffling. No, I lost it. And not only did I lose it, I cried my eyes out all the way home to a mom that was really concerned that I had lost some part of my brain because of this movie, or that I had gotten hurt seriously, because I couldn't stop crying over this movie for about a good hour. And I was almost inconsolable by that particular point. And understand that when she found out that this was actually a happy ending, she was definitely concerned at that particular point. Uh, but I think to myself, uh, because there is embarrassment involved in this, but at the same time, that because of the way that the theater, you're in the dark room, all your attention is on that screen. You aren't just watching a story; it's kind of enveloped you. You go into a movie theater and it doesn't. Um, it's not like a television where you can shut it off. You are in for the ride. You're on that ride until that movie's over. And the Incredible Journey, the Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey, was one of the first experiences where that kind of hit home when you realize just how powerful a movie can be, especially for a young boy, as I was at the time. But that was the first of my 5 experiences that I wanted to talk about: the Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. Um, if you had an experience where you lost it in the movie theater, please feel free to add your add your 2 cents to this conversation. So for my second experience, this one was something that I never expected to ever happen, and I don't ever think that we'll ever. I don't think it's possible to have an experience like this ever again. It's one of those perfect time, perfect places type situations. So, Saving Private Ryan came out when I was 17 years old, and it was a movie that I was excited about because, first off, you have Steven Spielberg. Second off, you have Tom Hanks, and that in itself would have got me to go see it. But I was also really excited, and on top of that, I saw this in the first screening in Houston, opening day, and little did I know it because I got my tickets ahead of time, just a little bit ahead of time, and so when I went to the theater to go see it, I didn't realize that it was going to be one of those screenings that would have a whole bunch of servicemen, World War II vets who came to see this movie, and I saw it in the biggest screen in the theater. It was what they called a mega stadium. It housed, I want to say, a good 1,000 people. So we're talking huge screen filled with vets. And this was before reserved seating and stuff. So when I got there, it was already to the point of filling. But I did get a good seat. That was a little bit further up close than I would normally like it. But I was sitting next to this vet in full regalia, with his decorations and his honors, on his not uniform. It was a vet's vet's attire, and I was kind of a little nervous about this, especially considering that my grandfather was a vet in the Korean War, so I do know about not a whole lot, but quite a bit about veterans and veterans affairs, but to have my grandfather never wore the attire like this man did, and so I was a little nervous, and his entire family was right next to him. And now, of course, if you've seen Saving Private Ryan, you know how Saving Private Ryan starts. It starts with the attack on Omaha Beach. Now, understand, mega stadium with 5.1 surround sounds, immaculately tuned, and you have these vets, this theater full of vets, having Omaha Beach happening right in front of them in full gore and glory. And you could just see a stream of vets walking out during the scene. They were having a moment, and they were leaving. The guy right next to me, he stuck through it, but he was visibly shaking during this particular scene. And understand that even I am like feeling numb watching this sequence. Nothing I had ever that I was aware of what could prepare me for what I was watching, and I took it made me really think about what it meant to be on that beach. And here I was sitting right next to this man who, I don't know if he ever served in Normandy. I don't know if he served, if he was on the Pacific campaign, or what his experiences were, but he shook violently as this sequence was over. And as that scene ended, he started to calm down a little bit. And that was, and again, this would be something that would kind of come back over and over again. Every moment that there was violence taking place, when there was an attack, when it was clear that that these characters are most likely going to die, that really kind of hammered home having not only the vet that was next to me, but all these other vets. And I was fully aware of these vets going through this experience with me, and for them it was kind of an awareness that what they went through, that what they went through wasn't Hollywood. This was, that for all the realism that was going through with this film, that none of the actors who we were watching died, that they got home, they got a paycheck, but that the experiences that these men went through, they saw death, they saw friends and comrades dying on the battlefield with them. And that wasn't even the most startling moment. The startling moment occurred as the movie's over, and everyone was somber and walking out like we had just got hit with a 10-ton bomb. Like we were all kind of going through, I don't want to say PTSD because that's very flippant in my opinion, but just this weight of kind of maybe not understanding, but just sympathy, just a group sympathy of what it means to go through that experience. But then remember, as I mentioned, this is like the first screening. So this happened like, I want to say like 2:00, like noon or 2:00, somewhere in there. And so when we came out, it was a bright sunny day. So you leave the theater and that sun hits you, because the door is right there. And the vet that was in front of me, not the one that was that was beside me the entire time, but just another vet. As soon as he hit that sun, the sun hit his face, he collapsed and started crying his eyes out in front of everybody. And understand that as this was happening, because these were packed screenings, the next showing was lined up ready to go into the theater as soon as we were coming out, and they were seeing this happen as well. And it was, I can only imagine what it would have been like to be in that group, watching us coming out of this theater just like ashen faced and like somber, and having these vets in full regalia reacting the way they had. And I will never forget this experience. This is one of those things that was burned into my brain, um, just because it was an experience that we shared together, and one that, again, like I said, I don't think you could ever have another experience like this before again. Just simply because um, the vets that go through the wars, the more recent wars that we've had, um, they're used to having so much media attention on what they went through, and so there's a desensitization of of the conflicts, where this one, like, it was all glorified, it was all made heroic and John Wayne, and to have the brutality kind of hit us in the face the way that we did, um, made this a different experience altogether, and one that I will never forget. All right, so on the lighter end, same year, obviously, the infamous Academy Award winner Shakespearean Love. I had a whole different experience with this one, and this one is because I saw it on Christmas Day. This was a Christmas movie. I went out of my way to go see this in a theater that was a little further away than normal. And the reason why this one was reason why this experience was memorable had nothing to do with the movie itself, although maybe a little bit about the movie, but it did have to do with a toy that was extremely popular at the time, called the Furby. On Christmas Day, because Shakespearean Love is a movie that, not to put too fine a point on it, has an audience that will want to go see it, namely middle-aged or roughly, 30 to 50-year-old women. And 30 to 50-year-old women tend to have children with them, especially on Christmas Day, because who's going to find a babysitter on Christmas? So they brought their children to the movie, and one of these children had a Furby. He loved his Furby. He thought his Furby was the greatest thing. And I'm pretty sure that if Mom tried to get him to not bring his Furby to the movies, because, you guessed it, when that Furby came into the theater, every other child of the same age or roughly around wanted that Furby. And so, not only was the Furby going on throughout the movie, mind you, but we also had to hear every child in the theater constantly complaining about wanting the Furby. I myself laughed harder than anyone else over this because, quite honestly, I thought to myself, I will never have kids because of the Furby incident. I have an 11-year-old daughter now, but I still remember the Furby incident every time that I think of Shakespearean Love, because it took a movie which I thought was perfectly fine, but it made it more memorable because of the experience that I had singing Christmas with an audience. By the way, that same day I also saw The Faculty. Didn't remember that movie nearly as much as I remember Shakespearean Love because of the Furby. Alright, next one. Yes, I am a Star Wars fan. As anyone remembers from last week, I talked about the Book of Boba Fett, and I have seen every Star Wars film in theaters since I was 2 years old, and my dad took me to see Return of the Jedi. Yes, I was 2 years old. That was my first Star Wars experience, and I've been a fan ever since. That said, I also understand some of these movies are better than others, and there's always going to be an argument over which ones deserve attention and which ones don't. That said, anyone who's ever experienced a midnight screening of a Star Wars film, back when they did midnight screenings, understand that the audience that is willing to wait until midnight to go see a movie is already excited, revved up, and it has a cult type of feeling of going into a movie. Now understand, nowadays when they do releases, they do those releases at anywhere between 5 to 8 o'clock at night, depending on where you are. That's a whole different matter. Midnight screenings were the thing that happened for fan films only, the films that people were super excited about. And they started off, I want to say, roughly around 2000 to 2001. That's where it started. But in 2002, you had Spider-Man, you had Star Wars Episode 2, you had those were the two big ones, but Men in Black 2, although that one turned out not to be so good. But Star Wars Episode 2, being there for the midnight screening, with fans that were all decked out in their robes. I think there was even a Chewbacca outfit, or was that Episode 3? One of those, someone came in full Wookiee. But what made Star Wars Episode 2 memorable, and remember that this is a movie that now is divisive to say the least. But during that fan screening on a midnight on opening day, everyone was having a good time. Everyone loved every moment. And when Yoda popped out with that lightsaber, the entire audience was on its feet, cheering and yelling and wooing. It was a madhouse during that sequence. And even to this day, when I think back on that screening, I realize just how important. Imagine going, and I understand, I saw the same film. Technically, it was the same day because I went back the same day with a friend to go see it. And it didn't have that same excitement. There was not that same energy. And so where other people had seen this film and kind of were more meh, they weren't with fans. And sometimes fans make a film better just because they're so passionate and they love the material so much. And that's one of the reasons why I try my hardest not to be derisive of fan films or films that fans enjoy, because I understand how that experience with being in a room full of people who are there for the exact same thing, who love the exact same thing, and they get the thing that they want. It's a thing of beauty, and we don't get those moments as often as we should, to be honest. But Star Wars Episode 2 was a wild, unique adventure, and it's one that even to this day I still enjoy. That said, I will make fun of it to hell and back because it is ridiculously goofy, but I still enjoy it. Which leads me to my last experience that I want to talk about. The Passion of the Christ. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear. I do not like this movie. I know, take that back. I hate this movie. This movie is painful. This movie is obnoxious. This movie is self-indulgent. That said, when I heard that Mel Gibson was making a movie about the last hours of Christ, I was going to go see it because I love Braveheart and I love The Man Without a Face. And I know that Mel Gibson is a great director. That said, the movie came out on Ash Wednesday. And when I went to see this movie, that was clearly aimed at a Catholic audience on Ash Wednesday, And I came into the theater packed to the brim in a large theater, one of the big theaters I lived next to, filled with Catholics with ash all over their foreheads. And I thought for a moment, because I completely forgot that it was Ash Wednesday, I thought I stepped into a cult screening. I'm not kidding. I thought it was a cult that I was watching this movie with, and I felt a little uncomfortable with these black sooted dots and X, not X's, but kind of like T's on their foreheads. Until I realized, oh wait, this is Ash Wednesday, and these people just came from Mass. And the excitement was all there. The again, kind of think about that fan type of experience that you would get that I was talking about with Star Wars. Except everyone here was super excited about seeing a movie that represents their faith in a way that they had never seen it before. And part of me was really excited about this. I was excited to see it from their perspective. And while the movie did not move me at all, it clearly moved everyone else in that theater. And when it got to the moments that I found extremely disgusting, namely beating Christ to an inch of his life before taking that life, in the silliness that happens after he dies, I was furious. I was getting angrier and angrier, and I found myself completely feeling isolated as everyone else was crying and sobbing, and some were praying, and part of me I got that cult feeling all over again. And that made me rethink my Star Wars experience just a little bit, because I just imagine, what if you were not a Star Wars fan and you went and saw that with the audience that I was with, that was whooping and cheering and hollering about a green CGI puppet waving a light stick at Christopher Lee, for crying out loud. And so part of me kind of got a wake-up call about fans and kind of the silliness of fan love, but at the same time, I also kind of, it's one of those things, like, I can't share in it, and I personally think that anyone who really who appreciates the Passion of the Christ, I want to know why, because it's not because that the film is any good, because the film is god awful. It does not represent anything in a way that is compelling or interesting. It's a film specifically aimed for one person, and everyone else just is kind of, I guess, meant to kind of go along for the ride. And then and it also had me questioning whether the people who saw this film were loving it because they found the story to be compelling, or if it's simply because it was an opportunity to see their faith being realized on film. And if that's the case, then why couldn't we have good faith-based films? And that's something I think that I will have an episode on. I feel like that there is something here that we can have a discussion about. But I will say, though, that the screening of Passion of the Christ, it was extremely memorable. First off, because of the audience and the people that I was with seeing this film. The other reason is because this is one of the very few films that I walked out of before the credits rolled, because I was so furious at the film and how it represented the events that I saw on screen. And in the moment that I had it was after the crucifixion and he dies, and then the silliness that happens after that. I went back and did see it later, but yeah, it did not help at all when I saw it again. Anyway, so those were 5 experiences that I had in the theater that really kind of stood out to me. And I am curious if there are any experiences that you've been through that maybe you want to share. Feel free to submit it into the comments, or if you want to send it to me through email, you can definitely do so on arthouselegends@gmail.com, or you can always hit me up on my Twitter feed at MovieDude_Eric, and we can talk about it, and who knows, maybe we'll even share it on a later episode. I would love nothing more than to share others' experiences that they've had in the theater, because I think, again, that the theatrical experience is so important. But that out of the way, like, share, subscribe. Our next episode, I am going to have a conversation with a good friend of mine, an indie film actor who has been on my podcast before, and he's going to drop by, and we're going to talk about what it means to be in indie films, especially now in the age of COVID. So please feel free to join us next week for that episode. I cannot wait to have that conversation and for you to be a part of it. But thank you so much for joining me for this very special episode of Monday Night Movie Talk with the MovieDude Eric, and have a wonderful week.